Hi, I'm Christy Wolfe. I'm one of the directors of special initiatives at the Wolfe Automotive Group. The Wolfe Automotive Group, in collaboration with the Wolfpack Warriors, is so pleased you're joining us for the first annual Power of the Pack Women Celebrating Women in Alberta. Our president, Ashley Wolfe, feels it's incredibly important to bring women together to share stories and advice. Together, we are cheering each other on. This year, we can't be together in person, so we've created this online event. I'm so pleased to introduce you to Ashley Wolfe, who's going to welcome you here.
My name's Ashley Wolfe, and I'm the president of the Wolfe Automotive Group. Welcome to International Women's Day. I'd love to be celebrating with you all in person today. However, due to circumstances, we'll have to celebrate online. Welcome to Power of the Pack, Women Celebrating Women in Alberta. Power of the Pack is a panel of amazing, beautiful business leaders that are women in Alberta. We have artists, we have entrepreneurs, business owners, educators, Olympic athletes, to name a few. These lovely ladies have joined us today to share their stories, to help motivate us and help motivate others who may be out there watching. Power of the Pack started because the Wolfe Automotive Group wanted to do something for the Alberta Council of Women's Shelters. Unfortunately, due to the past events over the last 12 months, issues such as domestic violence have been on the rise, and the Alberta Council of Women's Shelters have bared the brunt in helping this initiative. We want to make sure that all women out there feel empowered to make decisions to keep themselves safe and to keep their families safe, and the Alberta Council of Women's Shelters needs our help. So I'm asking you, if you can and are able, please donate to this wonderful cause. Welcome to Power of the Pack. Enjoy Women Celebrating Women in Alberta. Thank you. Bringing greetings on International Women's Day is our Lieutenant Governor of Alberta.
Hello everyone. It is my pleasure to join you for this virtual celebration of International Women's Day. I would have loved to meet with everyone in person, but as you know, we need to continue following COVID protocols until we can come together again, hopefully one day soon. In the meantime, we have virtual gatherings like this one to bring us together and give us all a boost of energy and focus. My own focus over these past months has been on the extraordinary work that Albertans are doing to meet the challenges of the day. One of my roles as Lieutenant Governor is to take part in ceremonies that recognize and celebrate our best citizens. Through these ceremonies, I have had the pleasure of meeting countless determined and hopeful people who are inspiring others and sparking positive change. This includes many extraordinary women who are true grassroots leaders, who look inside themselves to find what matters most to them and then use that passion to make things better for others. They remind us that there are things that we can all do to lift up others. Even the smallest grassroots action can ripple out to make a big difference. As Her Majesty, the Queen's representative in Alberta, I would like to offer my heartfelt thanks to the countless amazing women across our province who devote their energy, talent, and inspiration to building our communities. That includes our host, Ashley Wolfe, and her team. We all know the power of personal stories and the inspiration they bring. Ashley, you and your team have put together a program that puts into focus the powerful messages that only those with lived experiences are able to share. Thank you for making that possible and for the support committed to women's shelters. To everyone taking part in this virtual event, I would like to leave you with a final thought. As we mark International Women's Day, we should be particularly mindful of the millions of women around the world who do not have access to the safeties and opportunities that we enjoy and whose lives are repeatedly endangered just because they are women. As we act in service to our local communities, I hope we also remember that we are all members of a global family and that there is much work to be done. Thank you all. Happy International Women's Day, and please stay safe and well.
Today's event is also raising awareness and funds for the Alberta Council of Women's Shelter, which provides services to 40 member organizations in communities across Alberta. Joining us today, we have Jan Reimer, Executive Director of ACWS, RCMP Staff Sergeant Colette Zazaluk, and Donna Zazaluk, Director of Special Initiatives with the Wolfe Automotive Group. These women will be speaking on the current situation of domestic violence and what to do if you suspect someone is experiencing any type of abuse.
Today on International Women's Day, the Wolfe Automotive Group is pleased to announce a gift of $10,000 to the Alberta Council of Women's Shelters. We encourage you to support this necessary cause.
Today we're going to hear from a number of amazing women. They're going to talk about everything from business success to family life, from advice that they have for other women to what's next for them. Ashley Wolfe, President and CEO, Wolfe Automotive Group. Susan Agrias, President and CEO of Agrias Mind Fitness. Carolyn Campbell, President and CEO of Norquest College. Wanda Krantz, Shopping Center Manager for Harvard Property Management. Laura Jo Gunter, President and CEO of Northern Alberta Institute of Technology. Carly Kurtulitsa, Founder and Editor-in-Chief, Style to Sparkle. Marcella Mandeville, CEO, Alberta Women Entrepreneurs. Zenul Mauji, President of Home Solutions for TELUS. Mary Michaelides, Director and owner of Maria M. Consulting. Sharon Nishi, Regional Director of General Motors of Canada. Jackie Rainforth, President of the Rainmakers Group. Bridget Ryan, Owner and Creative Director of Carter Ryan Gallery. Kelly Vanderbeek, Broadcaster and Olympic Downhiller. Rosina Visram, CEO, Concentric Solutions and Tech Canada CEO Chair. And myself, Christy Wolfe, Special Initiatives Director for the Wolfe Automotive Group and the Wolfpack Warriors. Who inspires you and why?
Her Honor Salma Lakhani is a real inspiration to me and to Norquesters for her unwavering dedication to education and support of people as they work to transform their lives.
My grandmother inspires me. Unfortunately, she's no longer in the land of the living, but I was fortunate enough to grow up with her to mentor me. She was ambitious, a pioneer woman, an outdoors woman. She always repaired versus replaced. She was frugal, and she instilled a huge value of how important it was to be educated, well-read, to be able to make sure that you were always supporting yourself as a woman. And to this day, I think about her every single day, and she just always made me feel that I could do anything and that there wasn't anything out of my reach, and that was amazing for me.
That's an easy one. It's Mary Barra, who's our CEO and chairperson of General Motors, and she's truly inspirational. She's a leader that's implemented a clear vision and purpose for our company, and she's driving cultural behaviors that are inclusive, that is focused on the customer, team versus silos, and drives accountability from all of her employees. I'm really impressed with her leadership in terms of achieving our vision as a company. And it's an inspirational vision of zero crashes, zero emissions, and zero congestion, which is really driving our company towards a future that is incredibly exciting. The fact that we have now announced that we're offering zero emission vehicles, and that's all we're going to be offering by 2035, to me is inspirational, that we will be making a difference in the world as well, in addition to being a company. So Mary really, to me, is a guiding post for all women, I think, around the world that are in business, but in particularly for General Motors employees.
I'm so inspired by a number of people, but that spark of inspiration and the thirst for knowledge and adventure came from my mother. My mother emigrated with my father from Africa to Canada with almost nothing, no education, no money, no real prospects, and together they built an incredible family business. They raised my sister and I, and we are both active in the business community as well as in our community. And they set such a great example for what it means to develop yourself, to have ambition for yourself, to support your family, and most importantly, to continue giving back to your community.
The women that inspire me are really those early feminists and those women that just saw something and got things done. And they're not really people that we know, but they're people that I know because I've met them in my life. For example, I have this one friend, Fran Manson, and she became a single mom in Cape Breton. And after she became a single mom, she was one of the people that helped start a transition house for battered women, and it was one of the first there. She also worked at an agency to help other single moms, because this was during the 70s and 80s. So it was a very new thing to be a single mom in that sense. And also there wasn't a lot of work for women necessarily. Like, it was a very constrained environment compared to now. So she really was, in many sense, one of those early feminists, and she's been one of my biggest supporters. And she's always had jobs, even in post-secondary, around equity and diversity. So I just love her, and she's been one of the biggest inspirations in my life.
I thought about this, and there's a lot of famous people who of course inspire us, but really it's my mom. I would say that from the very beginning, she's been an inspiration to me. She's a professional. She's extremely intelligent. She was one of the first women to graduate from the accounting program in the University of Mexico, so always a trailblazer, and really always very committed to making sure that both my brother and I were raised in a way where we had a lot of confidence. So I think she and my dad did a really great job of really helping us to see what our potential is and what our role in the world should be. So very active volunteers and very committed to being intelligent and being gracious and being kind.
Oh, there are so many fabulous women out there that inspire me. The list is so long, I don't even know where to begin. But I have to tell you, my daughter really inspires me. You know, different generation, different thought processes. She is strong, capable, self-assured. I just, you know, you wonder, you pinch yourself, how did she turn into such a wonderful, incredible woman? I learn every day from her. There's always something new. So yeah, my daughter inspires me.
Difference makers inspire me the most. And when I reflect on a coaching and mentoring relationship that I have with two young entrepreneurs, aged 11 and 16, I'm constantly amazed at not only their spunk, but their opportunity to really reflect on what their passion is. I'm thinking about Ari and Bela, actually sponsors for today's conference, and looking at, you know, their cosmetic line. Their goal was to really inspire young women to be confident in who they are and to allow them to follow their dreams. As I work with these two young entrepreneurs, the difference they make is not only great in looking at supporting teens, but also they've decided to give back to the community. 5% of their proceeds will go to a nonprofit organization in our city. So when you ask the question, who inspires me? It's the 11-year-old and the 16-year-old who think beyond their years, who are passionate, who are innovative, and are not afraid to take any risks whatsoever. We sure can learn from that type of a spirit.
Hello, my name is Ari and I'm 11 years old.
Hi, my name is Bayla and I'm 16 years old.
We are entrepreneurs and we created our own cosmetics line called Ari Braun Cosmetics.
Happy International Women's Day!
How do you build your pack?
Building your pack 101. I think everybody builds their pack differently, but at the end of the day, it's human connections. As much as we have so many tools at our disposal, it's picking up the phone, it's looking somebody in the eye, it's engaging, it's reaching out and saying, how you doing today? Oh, I remembered it was your birthday. I hope you have a great one. Those little things help build your pack and create strong bonds that will carry you through so many storms. And I think that my pack has been so resilient because I've really worked hard at nurturing those relationships and recognizing every single person I come across. I believe to my core I can learn something from them. And I try and engage with people in that way.
I surround myself with like-minded ladies. There are a few men in there too, but I surround myself with very positive individuals who are goal-orientated and who think the same way that I do. The glass is half full, never half empty.
I think it's energy. I don't know what it is. I believe that the people that are supposed to be in your life come in your life. And you know right away when they are your tribe or your kind of people. You just get that feeling and you just click. And I think that's what happens. It's just meant to be, and it happens.
I build my pack and support systems quite deliberately. For instance, I've always reached out and cold called people to say, I would like to work with you more and you and have people that would help with particular areas of business and organizational development that I thought would be gaps in my own career and for which they could help fill. At the same time, whenever women reach out to me, even women that I've never met before through LinkedIn or other environments, and ask if I could perhaps meet with them and talk to them about their career path or some important things they're working on, I always say yes, because A, it's such an honor, it's very, very rewarding, and I learn a lot from those conversations too, but I think it's so important to give back.
Hi, I'm Donna. I'm a survivor of domestic violence. Domestic violence is a workplace issue. Do you know that 90% of domestic violent incidents will be disclosed to a coworker? Resources are available for all of us. Go to acws.ca. Please consider donating today. Help us save a family's life.
Happy International Women's Day. My name is Staff Sergeant Colette Zazalak with the RCMP. Domestic violence is an issue that affects everyone in our society. Over the last number of years, we have made great strides in addressing it. However, we still have a long way to go. One thing we really need to work on is attitudes and beliefs about domestic violence. Recently, there was something gaining momentum on Twitter asking women what they would do if there were no men on the planet for 24 hours. The vast majority of women responded that they would go for a run or a walk at night and not feel fear. I talked to my 16-year-old son about this, and he told me how sad it made him thinking that so many women and girls lived in fear. Together, we can change this. There are all types of domestic violence and techniques that abusers will use. One way is to isolate and control their victims through not having contact with friends and family. This has been exacerbated during COVID, and we've seen domestic violence rates rise. As police officers, we know there are many kinds of abuse: emotional, financial, spiritual, pets, and physical. The most common charges that we lay relate to assault and sexual assault, because we do know this is about power and control. Uttering threats, breaching orders, and criminal harassment or stalking. In the old days, a stalker had to actually do a little bit of work to stalk. They had to get in their car, drive around to find their victim. Now, they install some spyware, or they monitor through social media accounts, sitting in their pajamas at home. And this instills a great sense of fear and has some devastating repercussions. If you are or know of a victim of stalking, I would encourage them to log and keep track of everything, screenshots, everything, and provide that to the police. Even if they don't meet the threshold to lay charges yet, it provides that history and it shows the escalation that can happen. Working in threat assessment, there are some red flags or warnings for people in domestically violent situations. We know the old adage that the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. This holds true for domestic violence. If he says that he's hit you once, but he'll never hit you again, I'm afraid that's just not true. We also know that threats are really important and we need to pay close attention to that. There's something that's called the intimacy effect, and that's where the closer the relationship is, the more meaningful those threats are. If I can't have you, no one else will, is something we hear a lot of. And the time of leaving is when that abuser loses that control, and it's a super dangerous time, but there's a lot of supports to get victims through that. Another red flag is substance abuse. And oftentimes victims will tell me, he's a really nice guy. It's only when he drinks or uses that he becomes violent. Alcohol and drugs are disinhibitors. They don't change who you are at your core. If I have too much red wine, I'll probably do karaoke. I'll do some dance moves that I think are flawless, but I won't become violent because that's not my nature. If someone is inclined to be violent, the substance use will allow that to happen. And we're seeing more of that during COVID with people stuck at home. Likewise with mental illness, it certainly doesn't make anyone violent, but if they're violently inclined and they're struggling with their mental health, it destabilizes them so that they don't make good decisions. Another red flag, not following orders. Custody orders, no contact orders, and things like that need to be reported to the police. We know that if we work together to challenge attitudes and beliefs and support victims, we can reduce domestic violence. Thank you, and have a great Women's Day.
What advice would you give other women?
The best advice that I could give other women would be to not wait for, I guess, all your ducks to be lined up, to wait for everything to be perfect. Because if you wait for everything to be perfect, it's just not ever going to happen. And so often I hear people say, okay, when I'm done this degree, or when I'm done, I'm 5 years of working in this job, I'm going to do this, or when my kids are grown up, I'm going to do this. And I hear this a lot, or in 3 to 5 years, or in 10 years, I'm going to do that. And quite often what happens, if you keep saying that when this happens, it just doesn't happen. So I don't necessarily think there's a right time to start something. There's not a magical perfect time. I just say start now, just like Nike says, just do it. Don't wait for everything to get all lined up perfectly.
Women are amazing at business. We are passionate, we have great ideas, we are nurturing, so we instinctually know how to grow something or someone. And women are, we think outside the box. We are constantly, this word lately, pivot, has become such a strong word in the business sect. It's kind of like, as of late, I liken it to opening a new business every month. A new business plan, what are the new limitations, the restrictions, what do people want, where can they go to get it? But women are constantly pivoting on a daily basis in so many different aspects of their life. And so we are, and with grace. So the biggest thing I've realized in being, and I never intended to be a business person or a small business person, and certainly not a small business person in the world of the arts. But the one most important thing that I've learned that I could pass on is that the day I figured out women can be passionate, because I am super passionate. You talk to my mom and you'll understand where I get my passion from.
But taking the emotion out of business was probably the biggest lesson I learned. There's a big difference between being passionate, at least to me, being passionate and being emotional. And as soon as I made decisions that were based with any kind of emotion that had just sort of jumped in and made itself a place at the table, I had to rethink that decision, take a step back, let the emotion move away for a moment and just look at what was on the table. And that would be my biggest advice, because everything else that we have, and our emotions are great, it's part of our passion, it's part of our strength, it's part of our, but if it's a reaction, emotionally a reaction, or it's charged with that, then just take a minute or 10 minutes or an hour to just think about that. That's the biggest thing I've learned, I think, is not, and yet that's what makes us amazing, is that we are so passionate, that we are so intuitive, and that we know how to connect with people, and we know how to care for people, and therefore our businesses. So why some of the greatest businesses that I refer to and go to and support are, I would say most of them are run by women.
Lots of advice. I mean, I've been fortunate to be part of so many people's lives, being part of executive coaching. I feel blessed to help them grow and learn, and I actually learn as well from everyone, as I mentioned. So I think to give the advice to me would be to be who you are, aspire to be the best version of yourself every day. Start with compassion and empathy for yourself. Accepting yourself, and you'll become stronger with the mindset of being open by learning and growing. Of course, be open to ask for support where you need it.
Oh, I have so much advice to give other women. I guess, this is going to sound really contradictory, but everyone is going to always give you unsolicited advice, and I'm about to do the exact same thing. But with all of that unsolicited advice, my honest advice with that is to take everything that people tell you, figure out what works for you, what works for what you're doing, and throw the rest away. The other piece of advice I would give you is you do you. And if it's working for you, who cares what other people think? Because no matter what you do, you're always going to have a naysayer. It doesn't matter if it's a product, if it's a service, if it's a speaking engagement, or if it's some life experience or something. Someone's always going to have something to say. So just you do you, and just keep focused that way. And also, there's never the right time to start. If you're waiting for all the stars to align, they're never going to align. So just go for it. Just don't worry about it. Just dive right in.
To be kind to one another. I find that women often are critical when they could be spending more of their energy propping other women up. For one reason or another, I'm not sure what's taken place over time. Maybe we feel threatened. I'm not sure. But if we all spent a little bit more time supporting one another and being kind, women would do wonderful things in this world.
When did you discover that this is what you were meant to do?
I've always loved being around people and helping people, and I love fitness. I've been an athlete pretty much most of my life, so it just seemed like the perfect combination to do fitness and to help other people. But it was interesting how I got into the meditation and mindfulness, because I was getting everybody really physically fit, and they were still telling me that they were stressed out, they were anxious, they couldn't sleep, there was depression, there was a whole host of things that were going on with the mind. So I hopped on a plane and off I went to India, which is the birthplace of yoga and meditation. And so I studied with some of the world's greatest yoga masters, swamis, and gurus. And I really wanted to understand how I could bring back this technology, these ancient teachings that have been around for thousands of years, so we could lead healthier lives in North America. I knew I didn't want to hang out in a cave like some of my yogis did for 40 years, or pilgrimage through the jungles for 20, 30 years. And so I wanted to bring this back, as I said, to North America, and for myself, and also to teach others as well.
What am I meant to be doing? Sorry, what was that? No. I don't know what I'm meant to be doing. I think I follow my heart. I try and really have open vision. I talk a lot about, with the groups I work with, about really trusting your instincts and having wide peripheral vision. Because sometimes the best opportunities come at you from an angle that you don't expect. And being emotionally and mentally willing and open to take those opportunities, to dive in, to be uncomfortable, and to try different things if it feels right in your core, as well as being willing to say no to stuff that might seem like the traditional path, but being willing to know that your path isn't necessarily traditional.
I'm not sure I ever really knew that this is what I meant to do. This is just something that has come about. It's developed because of the things that have been happening in our lives. Our son is a medical kid, and that's how I ended up taking photographs. And it's a bit of how the Wolfpack Warriors came about.
I've always looked to take advantage of every opportunity I can, and I still think I'm not quite sure who I want to be or what I want to be when I grow up. But what I'm really, really passionate about right now is something that I call the trifecta. And what I'm really passionate about is creating products that do three things. One is that they deliver a benefit to a customer in a way that they could never experience from a competitor. The second one is that they do great things for the community. And the third one is that it improves our shareholder bottom line. So an example of this is our Babylon Vitalis Health Service, which is a service that provides virtual care for Canadians across the board. If all 5 million Canadians who don't have a family doctor had access to care, it would be an incredible contribution to our community, and it would significantly reduce healthcare costs. These are the types of products I'm so passionate about.
I think I'm still discovering it. I have not, this was not the career path I thought I was going to have. And so it's really been a journey and discovery the entire way. But I knew when I originally joined Alberta Women Entrepreneurs 12 years ago, there was something about the community and there was something about the purpose and the work that really resonated with me and I felt really connected to. So becoming CEO was, I feel, a natural part of that path, but it certainly wasn't something that I, aspired to or really looked to do when I was younger and thinking about what the future would hold. But I think in particular this past year, having to work with our team and lead through a pandemic has really cemented the importance of the work we do, and it makes me even more connected to the purpose and to all the things we're trying to do to help women entrepreneurs in particular in the province.
At Alberta Women Entrepreneurs, we meet so many amazing business owners from all across our province, women who are contributing to our economy and our communities. Nominations for the 2021 AWE Awards are now open. Let's recognize and celebrate our inspiring women entrepreneurs who are demonstrating perseverance, courage to take risks, and the ability to seize opportunity. Visit awebusiness.com to learn more and submit a nomination today.
What are your self-care strategies? Self-care, humor. I have to say that my biggest, greatest gratitude to probably both of my parents, but really my dad, but my mom too is pretty hilarious, is humor. That to approach everything in life through humor. And how does this apply to self-care is that is really what has gotten me through dark days, tense moments, reflection that perhaps may be too harsh or too, realistic or true. But humor is literally the best self-care, in my opinion, you can give yourself. When you laugh, when you really belly laugh, not only do you engage your abs, but you lift up your soul. And really, when you're thinking about self-care truly, and yes, a bath and an hour online of shopping or going to support a local business or a great meal is great, but truly taking care of what makes your soul happy. For me, it's laughter, and that is something that I hope I never, ever lose, because that is literally what has added to and got me to where I am today.
I'm a big health nut. I want to make sure that I always take care of myself, my physical self and my mental self before anything else. I'm a big proponent that if you don't take care of that, you can't take care of anybody else in your life. So I work out 4 days a week. I drink a lot of water. Every day I try to stretch for at least 10 minutes and just think about my day and think about what differences I want to make. And I really try to encourage others. And by doing that, it makes me feel better. And hopefully it obviously makes other people feel better.
Self-care strategies. I listen to my body. When I'm having a low energy day, I don't have huge expectations for myself. I sit back and I might take it easy that day, but you have to listen to your body because your body speaks to you. It's telling you something, and it's really important to make sure that you are listening. And that's what I do for self-care. I really pay attention to those little things. I love bubble baths. I love taking walks with the dogs. I mean, there's lots of great things that I like to do. But it's really, again, setting boundaries, making sure you fit that time in for you.
Great question. I think given the chaotic times right now, it's important that we take care of ourselves so then in turn we can help others. So for me, I meditate every day. I practice yoga 4 or 5 times a week. I work out, walk regularly, on warmer days. And normally I like to travel so I can appreciate my life and take a break. Travel for me opens up my senses, gives me an opportunity to learn about other people and cultures, which I love, aside from, the normal beach vacations that you can relax and have fun.
My self-care strategies definitely involve exercise and taking time for myself. But I think another really important one for me is setting boundaries and saying no to things that are appealing, but I just know won't fit into what's happening in my life.
Domestic violence calls have increased across the province of Alberta. The RCMP saw an 11.7% increase of domestic violent calls from March to September of 2020 compared to 2019. If you know of someone who needs help, please call 1-866-331-3933. If they are in danger, please call 911. Please consider donating today. You may save someone's life. Go to acws.ca.
How have other women supported you in your career?
There has been over my career those that have and those that haven't. I don't know if you've ever heard the quote from Madeleine Albright that says there's a special place in hell for women that don't help other women, and I really love that quote because I think all women need to help each other, and having this event really just I think brings it home. I've had women that have mentored me all along my career, whether it was when I was starting out and just helping me out on my first district in Alberta when I was calling on dealers, all the way to when I'm an executive and I still had women that were helping me and guiding me and providing counsel all on the way. So as best we can, I think as women, the one thing that I have learned is to make sure you pull along the women that are coming behind you so that you and pull them hard and pull them forward is sort of where I come from in terms of this. And we truly have I've been lucky enough to have a lot of women that have been incredibly supportive around me.
When I saw this question, I had to take a second because the majority of the big step forwards I've had has come from men in power. And most people in power throughout my life have been men. And I have to say that I have had some incredible experiences and influences that have been extremely positive with powerful men. However, boots on the ground, day to day, it's been mostly women who have supported me and helped get me through moment to moment, the emotional side as well as the aspirational side that I had as a professional. So it's been an interesting mix of my life story of having a lot of very influential, powerful men sort of give me a leg up or a word of encouragement, but it's been the women who have been the day-to-day encouraging word or encouraging mentor as well, who has helped me get to the level I have as an athlete as well as a broadcaster.
There was one woman who was incredible at the people she managed, and she supported my career in giving me the best opportunities at PricewaterhouseCoopers. And I will always remember that. She was kind, strong leader that listened to her people, and she herself produced results as a strong program manager back then. She led by example and supported other women, which unfortunately you didn't see much of that back then. in terms of women supporting other women. I'm glad to see the tides are changing now, and that women are supporting other women, especially this event. I think it's great, with the Wolfpack Foundation supporting other women, and we get to hear from other wonderful women. I think, and then in essence, we should all be who we want to be and accepted equally, because we're all human, whether it's men, women, different color of race, or religion, or the types of relationships. We're all one, so that's what I believe.
Honestly, I have had a lot of really great women support me. I used to work in oil and gas, and I was really young when I first started. I was in my early 20s, and I had some really strong female mentors. And I think they saw that I was just really eager to learn things. And so they gave me a lot of opportunities to, grow and learn new skills and that kind of thing. And I think it was because they weren't given those opportunities necessarily earlier in their career, and thought, you know what, here's a girl who's, really eager and looking to grow. So let's, give her the resources we didn't have. But as far as my blogging journey goes, I've had a lot of really great support just from other fellow business owners and from some of the other, my industry peers in the blogging community. It's been fantastic to have people that, I can bounce ideas off of in a really non-competitive way, which is fantastic.
They have supported me either as managers or other colleagues, reaching out, collaboration, just supporting each other with questions, discussing our successes, and also talk about some of the challenges that we face and how can we overcome them and what can we do to make it easier for our next generation.
I come from a theater background predominantly, so I come from like hardcore theater family, raised in the rehearsal hall, and theater is all about community. And I think that's what the biggest gift my parents gave me as a child was making sure that I understood what community was all about, and that if you had a good show, it was because you you created a good cast, a good ensemble. And I'm really seeing that, I think for a long time it was like, I gotta do this on my own. And then of course, as you get older, you realize I gotta do this with everybody around me, because you lift up the person next to you, you're lifting up yourself, you're lifting up everyone around you.
COVID-19 caused a significant drop in fundraised dollars for ACWS. There are over 40 shelters that are open and in demand in Alberta. In the past 6 months, over 12,000 women, children, and seniors were exposed and were served by these shelters. Please consider donating today. Help save a family's life. Go to acws.ca.
In honor of International Women's Day, we have partnered with Annie Hunting of Sagestone Mallas, an Alberta entrepreneur, to create a custom mala bracelet fashioned specifically for this event. Annie set out to create a piece that would uplift and empower, a piece that would draw forth the feminine qualities of intuition and compassion while instilling drive and confidence. You can purchase yours by going to our website, wolfeautomotive.ca. $20 of the purchase will be donated to the Alberta Council of Women's Shelters. What advice would you give other women?
When I think about the question, what advice would I give other women? A few things to consider. Support each other. Be there when the going gets good, but also be there when the going gets rough. There's an interesting quote that I've highlighted in my office, and it reminds me of the importance of a crown. And I think one of the best pieces of advice that I would give to women is that when women are wearing crowns and they're a little crooked, just straighten them without telling the whole world. This crown was given to me by an amazing colleague who's out of Cyprus, who's doing some extensive work in the area of human trafficking, and she's making a difference. Like many of the packs that you all have that make a difference. Katerina Stefanou gave us these crowns to really highlight the importance of being there to support each other, collaborating with one another, straightening those crowns to really make a difference, because together as women, we are stronger and better.
Well, I do a lot of women empowerment speaking because I kind of earned my wings in the construction industry, the male-dominated construction industry. I think for young women, I talk a lot about this. It's the confidence gap and it's the imposter syndrome. Remember that there is no one else in the world like you, and you come with special gifts and special talents. Own it. Own it and be proud of it. So often we hesitate, we slow down, we avoid things, and don't. You need to get out there and just spread your wings, be who you are and be proud of who you are. And there's so many ways that women can be strong, but I think it's, we just don't believe in ourselves. We all have those tapes that say, I'm not good enough, I don't belong, or, and I think we need to really, really focus on self-love, self-care, and being really kind to ourselves and putting ourselves out there.
I think the biggest piece of advice I would give other women is that you can have it all, just not all at once. We are so capable, we are so strong, we are powerful, especially when we come together, but we also want everything. We want to have the family, the love life, the successful business, the looks, the sleeping well at night, the body, come on, our expectations and our society's expectations on us are beyond reachable or attainable. And so I think that breaking it down, knowing what your goals are in the moment and in a shorter time frame is reasonable, and the best way to look at things is just you can have it all, just not all at once.
I think that even though we've come a long way, we've still got a long way to go. And the female point of view is a very valid point of view, and we just got to keep reminding ourselves that the female point of view is still very valid, and the way of doing things is very valid. So we really need to hang in there and really continue to push along those agendas. Although we've made great strides, we're still not there yet. And the other is, if you ever want to get into leadership positions, make sure that you're working to do two things: that you don't end up in anything that's dead end, that doesn't allow for the progression to the next step, and that you're doing things to get yourself recognized, that you have, not a big plan, but at least a plan as to how to get there. So when I decided that I wanted to be a president, I had like a 5 or 6 point plan of the things I needed to do that I saw that presidents had in their portfolios and their resumes, and started to work towards having those things in my resume as well.
What's next for you?
On the work front, I'm really excited about the vision and path that General Motors is on to achieve zero crashes, zero emissions, and a zero congestion future. And we're launching so many electric vehicles over the next several years, and we're really hitting an inflection point in the auto industry. And to be part of that right now, which I would, the analogy of this change is similar to when we went from horse and carriage to cars. We're now going from gasoline cars to electric vehicles with no emissions, and then we're going to go to autonomous vehicles. That inflection point that we're on right now is probably the most exciting time in the automotive industry. So I'm really excited on that front. On a personal front, I would say that this event has really inspired me to really lean in a little bit more. I lead the Women's Retail Dealer Network in Canada. And it's really a pack of women that are with General Motors, that are dealers and dealer personnel, and bringing them together even more, I think is going to be one of my next steps. Definitely, this event has inspired me to get going on that front.
It's so hard to undo AWE and me when I think about things like that. What's next for me within AWE? I mean, more building, growing. We need to be there for women entrepreneurs to emerge from the pandemic crisis, and we've been there along the way, and we want to really help with recovery and not just survival, but also being able to thrive once we are able to get back on even footing in our economy. And then, for me personally, it's just more exploration. I love to travel. I love to learn new things. So I see that journey is going to continue, and getting involved in the community. I love volunteering. I love being a part of different things. And so looking at those opportunities also, not only to help myself grow professionally, but also to help, really keep me connected to purpose and to helping others, and to being able to share what I have in a meaningful way. That's always been very important to our family. So that's something that's always a focus. And I'm so excited to just get out and hug people. That's the one I can't wait. So watch out. If I see you on the street, you'll be getting a big hug, but for sure, that's what I envision in the future.
Well, I've got this whole Be Kind mindfulness movement. It's a global movement that's turned into actually over 20,000 kids, teens, and adults have done the Be Kind mindfulness challenge, where you say or do something kind for somebody for 40 consecutive days. It can be longer, it can be the rest of your life. So when I put them on the challenge, there's two parts. One is a meditation that they do, and then two is the being kind part. And so I want to continue to grow this into bigger numbers, into hundreds of thousands of people. I'll continue to bring that to other areas of the world. It's spread across Canada. It's gone into the USA, into to South America. It's gone into Europe. It's gone into Asia, and just recently into New Zealand as well now. So I'm just going to continue to grow this, and then I want to continue to teach people how they can lead healthier lives, physically through fitness, and also mentally and emotionally through meditation and mindfulness. So I'm just going to continue to teach and give people the tools to lead healthier lives.
The Wolfe Automotive Group plans to expand with additional dealerships in the near future. What's really exciting is that this year we turn 100. My brother and I are 4th generation owner and operators of General Motors dealerships. And in honor of this milestone, we have started our family charitable foundation, Wolfpack Warriors, in efforts to create a legacy within our communities.
I think what's next for me has a lot to do with the Wolfpack Warriors. Working with my colleague Donna and the leadership of the Wolfe Automotive Group, we are planning how we can be supporting our local communities throughout the year.
Women's experiences of domestic violence are severe. Stay home, stay safe. That's not always true for those living in violence and abuse at home. If you know someone that is being violated, please help them make a plan to get out. Research resources. They don't have to stay in a shelter to seek help. I didn't. My family came and took me home to be safe. Please consider donating today. Help save a family's life. Go to acws.ca.
It doesn't always have to be a grand, heroic act. Almost more impressive are those who muster up the courage in everyday situations to do the unpopular. This is what will change our world. At this exact moment, many courageous acts are happening. A mom and coach of her local soccer team uses her built-in position as a mentor to talk about respectful relationships on the team and in life. A boy on her team with a scary situation at home has a new perspective today. A group of guys have beers after a game. One of them makes a degrading comment about a woman at a nearby table. One of the men, Greg, calls his buddy out for making the comment. It is laughed off today, but the guys in this particular group don't make similar comments again. A boy hears that his favorite aunt has recently escaped a bad relationship. He canvasses his neighborhood to sponsor his local mini bike ride to raise money to support the local women's shelter. Not only does he raise over $2,000, the media coverage from his actions generate awareness in his city. Earl has suspected that his neighbor Lucy has been a victim of abuse for a long time. One evening after work, he crosses paths with her and offers to keep a safety bag in case she needs to leave home in a hurry. She declines Earl's offer today and denies being a victim. But the next day, she pays him a visit and gives him a bag of essential items just in case. Many courageous acts happen today. This is what is changing our world. Leading change. How will you lead from where you stand? An Alberta Council of Women's Shelters call to action.
March 8th marks International Women's Day, an event that prompts us to consider both the progress made and the various experienced by women around the world. UN Women has declared 2021's theme, Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID World. This is particularly relevant as we reflect on what is happening to women today who are seeking shelter, those who are isolated and unable to seek safety, and the women who are providing services to them. If there's any sector that is a testament to women's leadership, it's the women's shelters movement. It's been women who started and who work in women's shelters around the world, answering the needs of other women who are escaping violence. These leaders choose to challenge violence, and that requires true courage. They choose to challenge the status quo and to effect both individual and systemic transformations. Shelters continue to do an amazing job showing up for women no matter what, even in the midst of a pandemic. When the rest of the world ground to a halt, shelters remained open. When it comes to women's shelters, it's been that way since the very beginning. Women are the ones who stepped up. The history of the Alberta Council of Women's Shelters dates back to the early 80s, and it began with a box of files and 9 committed women who recognized that together we are stronger. And almost 40 years later, ACWS serves as many members, operating over 54 shelters across the province, and is Alberta's leading body of action against gender-based violence. As we consider women in leadership and what an equal future might look like in a COVID-19 world, it's important to consider the current landscape in terms of equality. Domestic violence is very much a gendered problem. It's impossible to ignore the statistics. More than 80% of victims of domestic violence are women, and it costs women their lives. Every 6 days approximately, a woman in Canada is killed by a current or former partner. It is a serious and urgent problem in Alberta, where we have amongst the highest rates in Canada, as it is a problem all around the world. But violence against women is not just a woman's problem. People are often surprised when they enter through the doors of a women's shelter what they hear first, and that's the voices of children. At any given time, roughly half the occupants of women's shelters are children brought there by their moms. And protecting children is a critical piece of the work that women's shelters do. Exposure to violence can traumatize children for life. It can even extend into future generations if that cycle isn't broken. It's also important for people to know that shelters provide far more than a bed. Shelters are a real turning point for women who access them. Shelters connect them with resources in the community to help them rebuild their lives. They help them heal from the trauma that's been inflicted upon them, and ultimately giving women something that money can't buy, and that is hope and courage for the future. Making all this happen through sweat and toil, and with the compassion and strength that is required from the women who do shelter work at every level, this is what leadership looks like. At ACWS, we recognize that a skilled, well-supported workforce is so important to the women's shelter sector in order to effectively serve the needs of women and children. Of that note, ACWS has recently completed our workforce survey, which highlights some of the struggles that women in the shelter workforce have experienced over the past year, and particularly during the pandemic. The workforce survey gave us a clear picture of these women and some men who are in these vital frontline positions. And it helps us to assess how the women's shelter sector compares with some of the broader trends that are happening within nonprofits and the provincial workforce as a whole. The research identified some alarming trends. The virus, as we know, is measured in nanometers and indiscriminately infects who it comes into contact with. It is not gendered by nature. However, our societal response to its impact has been very gendered. COVID-19 has highlighted many of the fault lines within Canadian society, that has resulted in already marginalized groups suffering disproportionately from the pandemic's short and long-term impacts. Today, women, particularly Indigenous women, racialized women, and women with chronic illness and disabilities, are more likely to acquire COVID-19 and die from it. It's worth noting that women who are living with or have left an abusive relationship are also more likely to experience chronic illness and disability. So why have women been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic here in Canada? Well, women are on the front lines. They deliver what's known as the 5 C's: the caring, the clerical, the catering, cashiering, the cleaning, placing them at a greater risk of exposure. Women's shelters and other essential services have remained open since the pandemic began, while many Albertans were asked to stay safe in their homes. The flip side of this is that also women are more likely to lose income due to COVID-19 restrictions. Indeed, 60% of the job losses in Canada have been experienced by women. And since March of last year, women's participation in the Canadian workforce has fallen to the lowest level seen since 1986. These losses may take decades to regain. To add to all of this, the inequality is compounded by the access to affordable childcare. As schools and daycare shut down, women had to bear the burden of childcare. And as they reopened, as parents, some chose to keep their children at home, while others had to stay home when a COVID exposure happened in school, or even when that child developed that runny nose. Much of this burden is falling on the shoulders of women, and it's an ever-increasing load, with women being asked to carry more and more. And women's labor historically, and continues to be, even in 2021, discount labor. The wage gap is still there. The women's sector, or women in the nonprofit sector, are by and large the vast majority of the workforce, 80% in nonprofits generally, and 97% in women's shelters. And this has led to a long history of shelters being treated differently. They're under more scrutiny, they're required to report more on their activities, and they are subjected to much more of that red tape than other industries. Provincially, we see salary caps imposed on the women's shelter sector, as well as restrictions on benefits, making it challenging to attract and retain workers, and at the same time penalizing those who work in that sector. Women's shelters have not had an increase in funding in salary dollars for 7 years now, nor any cost of living increases to cover the costs that have been rising in running women's shelters. And I can bet that the top-up dollars of $1,200 recently announced will be all they see this year. So women's organizations have to rely on short-term grants and private donations, while having an increased administrative burden on reporting on all of those requirements. So fundraisers too have been canceled at the start of the pandemic, and they're now moving online. But long-term business partners and supporters are also facing business challenges, if not bankruptcy. And individual donors, primarily women, are the ones more likely to become unemployed or underemployed. So that's why ACWS and Women's Shelters are very appreciative of donors like you who support us. Without you, that work could not be done. However, it is unfair that private donors are largely carrying this responsibility, and it creates a barrier for women's serving organizations, as many donors choose to give their dollars to general causes rather than directly in the support of the needs of women. The work shelters do has been based on decades of experience. They navigate complex relationships with government, service providers, donors, and other stakeholders, while simultaneously doing the work on the ground to serve the needs of women, of children, and seniors who come through their doors. They have developed data-informed practices that are tried and true. Pinching dollars and stretching them to deliver sometimes what seems like miracles. These women are world leaders, but rarely do they get the support and recognition they deserve. So what can we all do to help? Well, first, speak or write to your MLAs and MPs and let them know that you support the work that women's shelters are doing. Tell them about the importance of shelters in your community and that they deserve robust funding. And you can also, of course, give yourself. Secondly, help us advocate for affordable childcare, both for women who are working in shelter, but also for those who are choosing to leave an abusive relationship and to gain employment. They really do need that childcare. And finally, join us in our prevention efforts. Follow us on social media. Help us disseminate and grow an understanding about violence against women and girls. We can all play a role by learning the signs of domestic violence, and through our Leading Change program, how our actions in the workplace or in the classroom are a crucial part in ending violence against women and girls. And you can learn more by visiting our website at acws.ca. Thank you again for inviting me to be here today and for engaging in this important conversation and be willing to dedicate your time to learning even more. Together, we can build a safer world. Thank you.
On behalf of the Wolfe Automotive Group and the Wolfpack Warriors, thank you for joining us for Power of the Pack. We are honored you chose to spend your time with us. Thank you to each of our speakers for sharing your experiences and helping us to raise awareness and funds for the Alberta Council of Women's Shelters. Special thank you to our media supporters, Global TV, Kissin' Country 103.9, 630 CHED, and Country 105. And finally, thank you to our Wolfe Automotive Group production team, Alexandra Benas, Matea Cacao, Claudius Hall, Michaela Ramos, Robbie Rousson, Sarah Skelly, Christy Wolfe, and Donna Zazaluk.